Mark, 35, was a dependable IT consultant. He was calm, loyal, and thoughtful, the type of guy who remembered anniversaries and refilled the gas tank before Olivia even asked. Olivia, 32, ran a small candle business from home. She was charming, funny, and loved being the center of attention. They've been married for 8 years, long enough for love to feel comfortable, yet short enough for people to still call them a young couple. No kids, though they'd tried. When friends asked, Olivia would just smile and say, "We're not rushing it. Life's already perfect." But life wasn't perfect. It only looked that way from the outside. The subtle distance. It started small, the kind of changes you only notice in hindsight. Olivia began spending more time on her phone. Late at night, while Mark was watching TV or answering emails, she'd be on the couch, quietly giggling at something on her screen. When Mark asked what was funny, she'd shrug it off. "Just a meme," she'd say, locking her phone so fast it made his stomach tighten. Then came the changes in her appearance. She started wearing makeup even when she wasn't going out. She bought new clothes, tighter, trendier ones. She started jogging in the mornings again, something she hadn't done in years. Mark didn't complain. He actually thought it was good that she was taking care of herself again. But something in the way she carried herself felt different, distant, guarded. The first lie. One Thursday, Olivia told Mark she was meeting a client about a bulk candle order for a wedding. She left in a rush, perfume lingering in the hallway. A few hours later, Mark called her just to ask if she'd be home for dinner. She didn't pick up. He tried again, straight to voicemail. When she finally texted back, it was short. "Sorry, babe, phone died. Just wrapping up here. Love you." But something didn't sit right. Mark wasn't paranoid by nature, but that night as he sat alone at the kitchen table, eating reheated pasta, his mind wouldn't stop spinning. Why didn't she answer? Why didn't she mention who she was meeting? He pushed the thoughts aside, telling himself he was overreacting. He trusted her. He always had. The red flags multiply. In the following weeks, Olivia's client meetings became more frequent. She started coming home late, sometimes after midnight. When Mark asked about it, she'd say she lost track of time while testing new candle scents. But one night he noticed her come home with a different perfume, not the one she wore when she left. Her hair was slightly messy and her lipstick was gone. Still, she smiled at him sweetly and said, "I brought you cheesecake." It was almost too perfect, too rehearsed. The moment everything shifted. 2 weeks later, Mark's office server went down late at night and he decided to work from home. Around 10 p.m., Olivia said she needed to deliver a last-minute sample to a potential client downtown. Mark kissed her goodbye. He said, "Drive safe." She smiled, always. But as he worked, something kept nagging him. Around 10:45, he noticed she left her iPad on the counter, the same one she used for her business. It was unlocked. Normally, he wouldn't snoop, but
an email notification popped up from someone named Daniel M. The subject line read, "Can't stop thinking about tonight." Mark froze. His heart started pounding so hard it made his chest ache. He clicked it. "Daniel M. You looked stunning tonight. I wish I didn't have to let you go when you got in your car. Counting the hours till I see you again. D." The room felt like it tilted. Mark stared at the screen, reading the message over and over, his throat dry. He scrolled up. There were dozens of emails, some weeks old, messages about their spot, about missing each other, and one where Olivia had written, "You make me feel alive again, Daniel, like I've been sleepwalking for years." Mark's hands were shaking. He set the iPad down like it was about to explode. He didn't cry. He didn't scream. He just sat there, silent, motionless, while the reality of what he'd read sank in. His wife wasn't meeting clients. She wasn't testing candles. She was sleeping with someone else. The night she returned. At 12:30 a.m., Olivia walked in, humming softly like nothing was wrong. She kicked off her heels, opened the fridge, and poured herself some water. "Hey, babe," she said casually, "you're still up." Mark looked at her, really looked at her. the way she smiled, the faint red mark on her neck she hadn't covered up. He swallowed hard. "How was the delivery?" She froze for half a second, then forced a laugh. "Good! The client loved it. Might even order more next month." He nodded. "That's great." She kissed his cheek lightly before heading upstairs. "Don't stay up too late, okay?" Mark sat there for another hour after she went to bed, replaying everything in his head. Mark didn't sleep that night. He lay there next to Olivia, staring at the ceiling, listening to the soft rhythm of her breathing, the same sound that used to calm him. Now it felt like torture. Every inhale reminded him that the woman lying beside him wasn't the same person he thought she was. By sunrise, his mind was spinning with anger, sadness, and confusion all at once. He replayed the scene outside the hotel over and over, her laugh, the way she held Daniel's hand, the look of ease on her face. She wasn't nervous. She wasn't conflicted. She looked happy. That was the part that hurt most. The pretend morning. At 7 a.m., Olivia stirred awake, stretching like nothing was wrong. "Morning, babe," she said, smiling sleepily. Mark forced a nod. "Morning." He got out of bed, went to the kitchen, and started making coffee, the same routine he'd done for 8 years. The sound of the coffee maker was almost too normal. Olivia came down a few minutes later, wearing one of his shirts, pretending to be the same loving wife he used to know. "Busy day ahead?" she asked, grabbing her mug. He shrugged. "Yeah, you?" She smiled faintly. "Same, gotta ship out a few candle orders." He looked at her for a moment. The perfect act, the practiced tone. It was incredible how easily she lied. The calm before the storm. Mark went to work but barely focused. His coworkers noticed he was quieter than usual, but he brushed it off as being tired. Inside, he was battling two sides of himself, one that wanted to confront her right away and another that wanted to destroy her slowly, methodically. By the time he got home, his mind was made up. If she wanted to play games, he'd play smarter. That night, he didn't bring up the hotel, the lies, or Daniel. Instead, he acted perfectly normal. He kissed her cheek, asked about her day, even helped her package candles for shipment. Olivia, none the wiser, kept smiling, laughing, talking about how busy business was. He felt like he was living in a theater, a fake life with fake love and a fake wife. The setup. 2 days later, Mark started digging. He knew Daniel's name from the emails, Daniel M., but that wasn't much. After a few hours of online searching, LinkedIn browsing, and a few clever social media cross-checks, he found him. Daniel Monroe, 37, a real estate agent in downtown Dallas. Divorced, 1 kid, recently separated from his ex. The pieces started to fit. Daniel was probably charming, confident, the kind of man who loved attention, exactly Olivia's weakness. He studied his photos, smiling at open houses, posing beside luxury condos, wearing that same gray blazer he saw outside the hotel. He felt sick. He printed out the emails, photos, and even screenshots from Olivia's iPad. Then he put everything in a black folder and hid it in his desk drawer. If this went to hell, and it would, he wanted evidence. The dinner that wasn't. On Friday night, Olivia came downstairs in a red dress. It wasn't the one Mark had ever seen her wear for him before. "Wow," he said, pretending to admire her. "You look amazing. What's the occasion?" She smiled shyly. "Just meeting a client for dinner. I'll be back early." "Need me to come with you?" he asked casually. Her eyes whitened a little. "Oh, no, it's just business stuff. Boring stuff." He smiled. "Got it. Have fun." As soon as she left, Mark waited 15 minutes before grabbing his car keys. He followed her again, this time keeping a safe distance. Her car headed downtown, exactly where he expected. He parked near the same hotel. He stayed far enough back to see her meet Daniel again. Same routine, hug, laugh, flirt. But this time, he didn't leave. He followed them inside, waited in the lobby for 5 minutes, and then, on impulse, took the elevator up to the same floor they'd gone to. The elevator doors opened. He walked down the hallway quietly until he heard voices. Olivia's laugh, Daniel's deep tone, and then he heard something else. The kind of sound that made his blood boil. He left before he could lose control. The breaking point.
Drove aimlessly for hours. At one point, he parked by a lake and just sat there,
gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. He wanted to scream. He wanted to punch something. But instead, he did what he always did. He bottled it up. By the time he got home, it was almost 2 a.m. Olivia wasn't back yet. He sat at the kitchen table again, lights dim, a glass of whiskey beside him, same setup as before. When she finally walked in, she looked startled to see him awake. "Hey," she said softly, "you're up late again." He stared at her for a long moment before speaking. "You smell like someone else." Her expression flickered. Shock, then guilt, then a forced smile. "What? Mark, that's ridiculous." He stood up slowly, his voice calm but sharp. "I followed you tonight." The color drained from her face. "You what?" "I saw you with Daniel. At the hotel." Her mouth opened, but no words came out. Tears welled up in her eyes, but Mark didn't feel sympathy anymore. "How long?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. She shook her head. "It's not what you think." "How long?" 6 months, she whispered finally. He closed his eyes. 6 months. Half a year of lies, of fake smiles, of pretending to love him while sleeping with someone else. The excuses began. "I didn't mean for it to happen," Olivia said quickly. It just happened. I was lonely, you were always working, and Daniel, he made me feel seen again." Mark laughed bitterly. "Seen? You mean used?" She winced. "No, it wasn't like that." "Oh, spare me," he snapped. "You think I'm an idiot? You think you can sneak around for 6 months and I'd never notice?" Tears rolled down her cheeks. "I'm sorry, Mark. I swear I still love you." He laughed again, shaking his head. "You don't love me, Olivia. You love attention. You love playing the victim." She tried to reach for his hand, but he pulled away. "Get out," he said quietly. "What?" "I said, get out. Pack your things and go to your boyfriend's house. Since you love him so much, you can stay there. Mark, please. Now." The firmness in his tone made her freeze. For once, she realized there was no way out, no way to twist it or manipulate it. She was caught.
The next morning, Mark sat in his car outside the Dallas Police Department, gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing holding him together. He'd barely slept, running through every possible scenario in his head. What could Olivia have possibly confessed? Why was she even talking to the cops? The sun was barely up, but the Texas heat was already starting to burn through his windshield. He finally took a deep breath, got out of the car, and walked through the glass doors into the cold, air-conditioned lobby. A woman at the front desk looked up. "Can I help you?" "Yeah," Mark said, his voice a little hoarse. "Detective Harris asked me to come in. Mark Sanders." She nodded, picked up the phone, and spoke quietly. A moment later, a tall man in his 40s appeared from the hallway. Dark suit, sharp eyes, and the kind of presence that made the air feel heavier. "Mr. Sanders?" he asked. "Yeah." "Detective Harris, come with me." The interrogation room. Mark followed him down a long hallway into a small gray room. The detective motioned for him to sit, then set a folder on the table. "Thanks for coming in," Harris said, sitting across from him. "I'll get straight to the point. Your wife, Olivia Sanders, came to us 2 nights ago." Mark tensed. "Why?" "She wanted to make a statement regarding the disappearance of Daniel Monroe." Mark frowned. "She said she was involved?" The detective hesitated. "She didn't use that word, but her story, well, it raises some questions." He opened the folder, revealing a few printed photos. Daniel's face, his car by the riverbank, a few other documents Mark couldn't read from across the table. "She told us Daniel wasn't just someone she was having an affair with. She said he was blackmailing her." Mark blinked. "What?" Harris leaned forward. "According to her, Daniel threatened to expose personal photos and messages unless she kept seeing him and paying him." Mark shook his head. "That doesn't make sense. She told me she loved him." "She probably did," Harris said flatly. "At first, but these things rarely stay simple." She said the relationship turned toxic. Daniel got aggressive. He wanted money, control. When she tried to break it off, he told her he'd ruin her marriage, her business, her reputation. Mark's stomach turned. He wasn't sure what to believe anymore. "So what does that have to do with him disappearing?" he asked. The detective's gaze hardened. She said she met him the night he vanished, to give him cash, to make him go away. And? She claims he attacked her. Mark's breath caught. Attacked her? That's what she said. She told us she met at the hotel. They argued in the parking lot. He tried to grab her, and she pushed him away. He fell, hit his head, and she panicked. Mark sat completely still. "You're saying she possibly killed him," Harris finished quietly. "Accidentally." The room fell silent except for the faint hum of the ceiling fan. Harris insists it wasn't intentional. Says she tried to check his pulse, but he wasn't breathing. She freaked out, dragged him toward his car, and pushed it down a small embankment near the river. She claimed she was terrified and left before anyone could see. Mark felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. Jesus Christ. Harris watched him carefully. "We haven't verified her story yet. The body hasn't been found, but we're searching the area she described. If what she's saying is true, it might have been an accident. But there's more." Mark's eyes snapped up. "More?" The detective nodded slowly. "According to her, Daniel had been planning to extort you. He was supposedly digging up dirt, even asked her to get access to your financial records and personal information." Mark felt a chill crawl up his spine. "Why would he do that?" "Because you work in IT security for a software firm," Harris said evenly. "He believed you had access to sensitive company data, something he could sell." It all started to connect. Olivia wasn't just cheating. She had gotten tangled up with someone dangerous. Someone who saw her marriage as an opportunity. "Jesus," Mark muttered. "I thought she was just unfaithful. I didn't think she'd get caught up in something like this." Harris closed the folder. "We're not done investigating, but we need you to stay available in case we have more questions." Mark nodded numbly. "Yeah, of
Course. The confrontation. That night, Mark couldn't sit still. He paced the house for hours, replaying everything in his head. Part of him still hated her for the lies, the betrayal. But another part of him couldn't ignore the image of Olivia terrified, shaking, covered in someone else's blood. He finally broke. He grabbed his keys and drove straight to the address Harris had given him, a small apartment complex downtown where Olivia was temporarily staying. He found her door, knocked twice. It opened slowly. Olivia stood there, eyes swollen, hair messy, face pale and exhausted. For a moment, neither of them said a word. Then she whispered, "You shouldn't be here." "Too late," he said. She stepped aside and let him in. The truth comes out. The apartment was bare. Just a few boxes, a couch, a half-empty wine bottle on the table. She sat down and looked at him like she'd been waiting for this moment. "You talked to the cops," he said. She nodded silently. "Everything you said, was it true?" She hesitated. "Mostly." He clenched his jaw. "Mostly?" "I didn't mean to hurt anyone, Mark. It just got out of control. You cheated, lied, and now someone's dead? What the hell were you thinking?" Tears filled her eyes. "He wasn't who I thought he was. At first, he was sweet, fun. He made me feel alive again. But after a few months, he changed. He wanted money, access to your company data. He said if I didn't help him, he'd send you everything, texts, pictures, everything. So you just kept sleeping with him? I thought I could control it. I thought if I played along, he'd get bored and move on." Mark shook his head. "You don't control a psychopath, Olivia." She sobbed quietly. "I know." He sighed heavily, rubbing his temples. "And that night, did you kill him?" Her voice dropped to a whisper. "I don't know. He grabbed me, I pushed him, he fell. I panicked. I didn't mean to." Mark slammed his hand on the table, startling her. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" "I was scared. He wasn't breathing. I didn't know what to do." "Call the police. That's what you do, not dump a body like garbage."
Her sobs filled the room. Mark turned away, disgusted. After a moment, she whispered, "You don't believe me." He turned back slowly. "I don't know what to believe anymore." The twist inside the twist. Just as he was about to leave, Olivia said something that made him stop cold. "There's one more thing." He glared. "What?" She hesitated. "Daniel wasn't working alone." Mark froze. "What do you mean?" "He had someone helping him. Someone who told him about you, about your company, about how much your projects were worth." Mark frowned. "Who?" Olivia swallowed hard. "Your business partner, Ryan." The name hit him like a brick. Ryan Blake, his closest friend, the guy he'd built the company with, the one who'd stood by him for years. Loyal, dependable, or so he thought. Mark's mind flashed through all the recent oddities. Ryan insisting on changing access credentials, pushing certain projects forward, acting overly cautious whenever Mark mentioned company audits. He stared at Olivia. "You're lying." She shook her head slowly. "He came to one of our meetups once. Daniel introduced him like it was casual, but later I found out they'd known each other for months." Mark took a step back, trying to process. Ryan's behind this? He was feeding Daniel information. I think Daniel tried to double-cross him. That's why he ended up dead. The room spun. Mark grabbed the edge of the counter to steady himself. If this was true, his entire life, his marriage, his career, his friendships, had been built on lies.
Danger. Mark gave a bitter laugh. Story of my life lately. The trap. That night, Mark went back to the office after hours. The building was empty, quiet except for the faint hum of servers in the back room. He logged into the secure terminal, bypassed the company firewall, and started digging through archived emails and backup data Ryan probably thought he deleted. After 3 hours, he found what he was looking for: a string of encrypted messages between Ryan and a disposable account labeled D. Monroe. The messages were technical, mostly about asset transfers, timelines, and data valuation. But one line made Mark's blood run cold. "Payment confirmed. Olivia has access. Once she gets the credentials, we're done." Mark leaned back, staring at the screen. He copied everything onto an encrypted flash drive, double-checked that the logs wouldn't show his access, and left. He didn't even realize someone was watching him from the parking lot. The confrontation. The next day, Ryan showed up at Mark's house unannounced. Mark was in the kitchen making coffee when he heard the doorbell. When he opened it, Ryan stood there, smiling. But something about that smile looked different this time. Forced. "Hey man, you got a minute?" Mark hesitated. "Sure, come in." Ryan walked inside, hands in his pockets. "I noticed some weird activity on the servers last night. Someone accessed the archive backups." Mark kept his face neutral. "Probably maintenance scripts?" Ryan nodded slowly. "Yeah, maybe." He stepped closer. "Or maybe someone was looking for something." Their eyes met. The tension between them was electric. "You want to tell me what's going on?" Ryan asked, his voice dropping. Mark set the coffee cup down carefully. "You tell me, Ryan. You and Daniel Monroe? What the hell were you doing?" Ryan froze, the smirk vanishing from his face. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said quickly. "Cut the crap," Mark snapped. "I saw the messages, the data transfers, the payments. You sold company info, didn't you? You used Olivia to get it." Ryan's jaw tightened. "Watch your mouth." Mark took a step closer. "Or what? You'll do what you did to Daniel?" Ryan's face twitched, just slightly.
Enough to confirm everything.
Documents and cash, she'll vanish completely. Mark hung up, staring at nothing. He could have let it go. He could have accepted her disappearance as closure, the final chapter of a story already drenched in betrayal. But something inside him refused to. He needed to see her one last time. Not for vengeance, not even for justice. He just needed the truth. Baja, Mexico. A week later, Mark was standing under the blinding Baja sun, squinting at a small coastal town that smelled like salt and dust. He tracked the plane to a private dock, then followed a faint paper trail to a villa registered under a fake name. But the car parked outside was the giveaway, a silver SUV, the same model Olivia used to drive back home. He walked up the stone path, his heart hammering in his chest. He didn't knock, he just opened the door. Inside, the air was cool and still. A half-empty glass of wine sat on the counter, a suitcase lay open on the bed, half-packed, and there she was, Olivia. She turned slowly, her eyes widening when she saw him. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence was thick enough to choke on. "Mark?" she whispered finally. "How did you find you?" he said, voice low. "You didn't cover your tracks as well as you thought." She set the glass down gently. "You shouldn't be here." "Maybe not, but I had to know." She looked down. "You already know everything." "Do I?" Mark stepped closer. "Did you kill Daniel?" Her eyes flickered. I told you in the letter. I want to hear it from you." She took a deep breath. "He came to the house that night. He was drunk, angry, said Ryan was going to cut him out. I tried to stop him from making a scene. He shoved me, I shoved back. He hit his head. It wasn't supposed to happen." Mark stared at her, searching her face. "And then what? You called Ryan?" She nodded. "He said he'd handle it, told me to stay quiet. He said if I told anyone, it would ruin both of us." Mark's voice hardened. "You still had a choice. You could have told me." Tears welled in her eyes. "I wanted to, every day. But every time I tried, I saw the way you looked at me. I couldn't bear to lose that." Mark laughed bitterly. "You lost it anyway." The truth beneath. They stood in silence for a long moment. The only sound was the ocean outside, waves crashing against the rocks. Finally, Olivia spoke again, quietly. "Ryan told me he had a plan, that if you found out, he'd blame it all on me. He even had messages drafted, fake ones. I knew if I stayed, I'd go down for everything. So you ran?" "Yes." Mark nodded slowly. "And the money, the Cayman account." Her eyes darted away. "Insurance, in case Ryan tried to turn on me. I didn't want to end up like Daniel." He stared at her. "You always had an excuse." She met his gaze, tears sliding down her cheeks. "You think I don't hate myself for this?" He didn't answer. Instead, he pulled a small device from his pocket and set it on the counter, a tiny digital recorder. Her eyes widened. "You're recording me?" Detective Harris needed proof. Now he has it. She shook her head. "You wouldn't." "I already did." Olivia stepped back, her voice trembling. "Mark, please, I didn't mean for any of this. If you send that to the police, I'll spend the rest of my life in prison." Mark's jaw tightened. "Maybe that's what you deserve."